Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video, and over the past week or so, we had the release of both Blu-rays for The Flash Season 9, which of course was its final season, as well as The Flash movie. Now, The Flash movie had been out in digital for a bit, but it had its physical release just recently, and while the two properties don't cross over within their actual contents, unfortunately, there is one thing they have in common, and that is something in their special features, which is a documentary called The Flash, the Saga of the Scarlett Speedster, which, as you should be able to tell from the title, does detail the legacy of the Flash from where it started over 80 years ago up until the present day. Now, have you watched it? Let me know. If not, let me know your favorite Flash moment in the comment section down below. Maybe who's your favorite Flash, whether that's the actual actor or the character itself, like a Barry Allen or a Wally West, let me know. We're going to be going over, my thoughts and just sort of a bit of a breakdown of what the documentary is, so hopefully you enjoy it. But of course, if you're going to enjoy the video, it would be awesome if you could drop a like on the video to show support and just if you've got some spare time. Now, this documentary features interviews with very Flash-connected faces like Geoff Johns, Mark Waid, Grant Morrison, Grant Gustin, Ezra Miller, Andy Muschietti, a bunch of others. Now, they do cover a lot in this documentary, and it really highlights why the Flash is not only a character, or a great character, might I say, within the DC universe and just amongst the grand catalogue of superheroes that's out there, but also why Barry Allen specifically, but also Jay Garrick and Wally West, are great characters and idols. It just overall highlights, certain things around the character that you might not know that make the Flash stand out, regardless of the time period or the specific character. So the first thing that the documentary goes over is the Flash's history in the comics. Of course, starting off back in 1940 with Jay Garrick, and it really highlighted something that I had sort of missed about that whole introduction, mainly just due to the deeper aspects that the modern day Flash lore goes into. But back when the character of the Flash, or Jay Garrick, came out, he was really the only superhero that had one thing, like one power. He could just do one thing. Superman could fly and was strong and all that, and other heroes could also fly and be super smart or whatever it might be, or shoot laser beams or have a green power ring or whatever it might be. But the Flash, he was just fast. Pretty simple. He just ran fast. That's it. And also, back then, long-running superhero comics weren't really that common, but the Flash comics, or Flash comics, with Jay Garrick had over 100 issues or something like that, which was the only hero of the Golden Age to do so outside of your main trilogy of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. And when it came to the comic book side, and more specifically Flash side, it is really pushed how Jay Garrick as a character is the pillar of what stands today with not just the Flash and not just comic books, but superheroes as a whole. Jay Garrick was the predecessor to Barry Allen, who ignited the Silver Age, which reinvented superheroes to this date. So without Jay Garrick, there is no Barry Allen, and arguably without any Barry Allen, we aren't where we are today across all comic books. Superheroes were really dying out at the time, and the idea to reignite the Flash with Barry Allen spurred the comic book medium into a new era and a more prosperous future, which we are seeing the effects of nowadays. So it's sort of this weird, domino effect. And more specifically, with Barry Allen, who boosted this all, they highlight that at the time that new superheroes, being created were made, they highlight that at that time specifically, that these new superheroes that were being created were made to be scientists or high-end roles like that as a way to get kids interested in science, as the space race was the rage of the time. So Barry Allen as a scientist, Hal Jordan as a test pilot. I didn't know that. But one thing they focus on, which stands to this date, is the Flash suit and its simplicity and how it worked so well back then and still does to this day. It's still just a cool superhero suit. And the fact you could just see his suit, you could just look at this guy, not really know anything about him, and just go, that guy runs fast. You don't need to be explained what he does, or at least on a surface level. You can just look at him and go, yeah, that guy can run fast. I can tell from his suit. And one minor thing that they talked about, which I liked, was that some things might not make too much sense, especially in some of those older comics that it's just okay, I don't know if the science or physics is really working around this stuff, but you can break the rules. This is something that said you can break the rules and be a bit over the top if it's cool. As long as it's cool. Just remember that most important thing. You can break it, you can do whatever you want with it, but make it cool. Now, of course, it wouldn't be a Flash documentary if they didn't touch upon the multiverse. And the Flash and the multiverse is like bacon and eggs. They're just made for one another. And when you look at the current movies coming out now, whether it's in Marvel or it's in DC, multiverse is everything. And it all stems back to the Flash with the comics. Now, the Flash's connection to the multiverse comes to a head with Crisis on Infinite Earths in the 80s, where, of course, Barry Allen does die. Marv Wolfman, who wrote the story, said that he sort of wanted to make the death of Barry Allen in like an important part of the story and not just a throwaway moment. And at the time, people were sad. Like, people cried reading that comic, and they also gave their feedback, and they weren't hurling abuse or whatever. They just understood. They were like, I'm sad to see Barry Allen go, but I appreciate the well done ending. It just worked really well. So that's just what good storytelling does. Now, of course, this leads into another fresh face. We've talked about Jay Garrick, we've now talked about Barry Allen, and this led into Wally West. Now, Wally West was already in the comics at the time. He started off as a fanboy of The Flash, to then becoming his sidekick after getting powers in a very similar way to The Flash. And as Mark Waid says in the documentary, he is the only sidekick who steps up and actually becomes that main mantle holder. Sure, some have stepped in and done it for like a day or whatever, like Dick Grayson has become Batman and stuff like that, but not actually become that main mantle for such an extended period of time. And with Barry Allen's death, you know, Wally just didn't lose his hero, idol, and leader, you know, his Flash to his kid Flash. He lost his uncle as well. And Wally, you know, going on to take that mantle and honor his uncle and idol shifted the character of Wally West into a new era, but also opened up the Flash lore to evolution as well, which introduces the Speed Force and the finer details around that and what it does and how it connects all the speedsters. It was, you know, it allowed it to evolve to what we have now with Barry Allen being back, which leads into Flash Rebirth, which was done by Geoff Johns in the mid-2000s, and this brought Barry Allen after 20 years back to life and gave Barry Allen this new backstory, which introduced the death of his mother Nora and the arrest of his father Henry for that murder, though Reverse Flash was behind it. And this just pushes Barry's story into a deeper quality, and highlighting that Barry being given these powers and becoming the Flash made his life better. Like, when I heard that in the documentary, it made you just smile a bit, and I don't want to say like get ridiculously emotional, but just go, that's true. Like, given the, like, when you change his backstory and add that stuff in, and also give him an element of like why he becomes a forensic scientist, there was so much you could actually play around with that, and I think it makes the character better. And I just love that thing where him becoming the Flash and being given these powers which help other people a lot also made his life so much better. It wasn't a burden. But of course, you know, we're talking about the comics, but, you know, the Flash, a lot of people would know from media. And, you know, we had the 90s show. That was the first thing. Now, the Flash had been in some like animated projects like Super Friends and some of those other like, you know, more, you know, Saturday morning TV shows, those cartoon things, but never really like a major focus. He would just appear here and there. But the 1990s Flash show starring John Wesley Shipp put the Flash in the spotlight, coming off the heels of specifically the Tim Burton Batman film. And this was pre-Rebirth, so no Nora Allen death. So there are differences to what most modern day viewers would see with the character of Barry Allen. Like in that show, his brother dies, and that sort of spurs him on. Obviously, Barry Allen doesn't have a brother in the modern day stuff, just in general. And the show was great at focusing in on a regular guy getting these extraordinary powers and the responsibility that comes along with it. And that's something that, you know, even like the people on the panel or the other people that are in the documentary sort of focus in on as well. Now, this did stem into like the early 2000s roughly with the Justice League animated shows. Did I just say animated very weirdly? Animated shows. And this gave us a more like light and energetic character amongst a group of like overly serious heroes like a Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Superman, all that stuff. And they made him the more relatable character of the group. This was Wally West at that point, but of course Barry Allen had died in the comics, so you sort of make sense you'd use Wally West because he's the current Flash in the comics as well. But they also do state that they think that they used Wally because he would have been younger anyway, so they might have had the option to use Barry Allen, though logically at the time it just, I guess, would have made more sense just to use Wally anyway. But yeah, it made him the more relatable character of the group through his actions, I guess, for better or for worse, depending on what he did. But this all then stems straight into the CW show. Now, Greg Berlanti said that every good Flash story has an element of heart, a lot of humor, and a lot of spectacle, which when you look at the Flash TV show, that is a core part of the show in every single storyline that it tackled. Some might have leaned darker, or some might have leaned lighter, but those three elements of heart, humor, and spectacle, they were prominent throughout each one. With it being said by the panel on the documentary that Grant Gustin's portrayal really nailed the whole, like, this guy loves being the Flash angle and it makes his life better. You know, as I was talking about before with the, you know, Flash Rebirth and Geoff Johns' storytelling there. And as we saw throughout the show, this whole thing gave him closure and understanding of what happened in his life and why it happened, as well as more. And Geoff Johns also says in that documentary that Greg Berlanti's intention with the show was to make it the most comic booky DC show ever to hit television, and I think he easily succeeded with that. I actually think the longer the show went on, the more comic booky it became, especially when it came specifically to the character of the Flash itself. Grant Gustin grew more and more and more into that role and who Barry Allen is in the comics by each season, right up until the end. Geoff Johns also stating that Grant Gustin made the Flash a fan favorite for not only this generation, but for also the generations to come once his portrayal, you know, is seen by them, which is, you know, lovable, relatable, and powerful at the same time. That's how I think it was Geoff Johns described Grant's portrayal: lovable, relatable, and powerful at the same time, and you just rooted for him each single episode. Now, this then stemmed into the movie. Now, the movie gets sort of like the last sort of focus, I guess you could say, and it just sort of really focuses on like the Flashpoint and the inspiration and like the Flash of Two Worlds inspiration of the movie, whilst also just setting up what the movie is about roughly as well. Obviously, didn't want to spoil the movie and stuff like that, but it sort of focuses in on the message of the movie, which is sort of making peace with the things we cannot change. And Geoff Johns also says that like that's one thing he felt like the movie nailed when it comes to the Flashpoint aspect, was that, you know, like dealing with grief and, you know, you make these choices, but sometimes you can't change everything. And I think that's, you know, pretty accurate as well. And I think it was John Wesley Shipp in the documentary, which he said that summing up the Flash in one word, he said if I could use one word to sum up the Flash, it would be legacy, which I think is perfect. I think that is a term that's used a lot with the Flash, especially when it comes to, you know, how many different people have held the mantle, but each one stands on their own, which is an important thing. You know, a lot of people, like a lot of the Green Lanterns, people might feel they, you know, maybe they're folding on each other or whatever it is, or, you know, whoever it might be, where it's like the spider people and stuff like that. But the Flash is like, there's a lot of connection throughout it. And it's like, I think we use the term the Flash family for a reason, because there is more of a connection there, whether it's just through the Speed Force itself or just how the characters link to each other as a whole. So I think legacy is the perfect word to use if we're just using one word to sum up the Flash as a, you know, property. But one other thing was that the Flash's powers, stories, and tone will be what keeps people, you know, revisiting the character for decades to come, which I think is accurate as well. I think you can keep this character going on. Those stories that you told in the 40s, 50s, and 60s could probably be retold in the modern day context with just some minor things there, and they'd still work. But maybe some other characters and their stories wouldn't work. So I think you have to agree with that as well. But that's all for my review and sort of like minor breakdown, if you want to call it, for this documentary. The link to the documentary will be in the description down below. Hopefully it's not taken off YouTube, but it's there at the moment at the very least. It's about 40 minutes long. I definitely recommend it. I think it's definitely worth the watch. I very much enjoyed it, both as a Flash fan and just a person that like watching, you know, documentaries and finding out any like hidden details it might not be about, just learning more. Definitely worth the watch if you have an extra 40 minutes or maybe when you're eating lunch or whatever it is. Much more is talked about in that documentary than the stuff I highlighted in this video. I just wanted to talk about the stuff that I thought was most interesting and that I wanted to sort of, you know, call back to after my viewing of it. But yeah, links in the description down below. If you have the time, go watch it. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome. You could drop a like and it shows support. Let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts on this. Did you watch it? Did you like it? Who's your favorite Flash character? Is it Barry? Is it Wally? Is it Jay? Let me know. And any other thoughts and opinions you have down there, let me know. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.